Claudia, my mother-in-law, sat at the head of the table like the queen she secretly thinks she is. Big family dinner for her birthday, candles, good plates, relatives who pretend to like each other for one night a year. Her younger daughter, Lauren, my sister-in-law, floated around filling glasses like a cheerful waitress no one tipped. She laughed at everything, including her own laugh. And Selene, my wife, sat next to me in her navy dress, sipping her wine slowly. I could tell by the way she was smiling that she was building up to something. Halfway through the main course, she tapped her glass with a spoon. Oh boy, I thought. The room went quiet. I just want to say a quick toast, she announced, standing up. To Mom, she started, and everyone echoed. To Mom, clinking glasses. But Selene wasn't done. You know, she said, turning her body slightly so the whole table could see her. Yesterday, Dorian and I argued about our vacation. Nothing serious, just a little debate. But it made me think. Some husbands are very sure they're always right. Some even think they're irreplaceable. She paused for effect, eyes flicked toward me. And let's be honest, she continued, smiling sweetly at Claudia. Mom figured out 20 years ago that Dad wasn't as irreplaceable as he thought, and she's been living her best life ever since. Maybe we should all think about how irreplaceable our husbands really are. The room erupted with laughter. Lauren actually slapped the table. Someone whistled. One of Celine's friends raised her glass and said, "Preach." I sat there, silent, holding my fork. Claudia tried to keep smiling, but it looked forced. I slowly raised my own glass. You're absolutely right, I said, my voice calm, almost cheerful, and drank. The laughter thinned out like someone had turned down the volume. A few people glanced between me and Selene. Claudia coughed into her napkin. Well, she said brightly, who wants cake? And just like that, the conversation shifted to dessert. I spent the rest of the night doing my best impression of a good husband. I smiled when people spoke to me. I complimented Claudia on the roast. I helped Lauren clear plates. Inside, though, something had clicked. Not anger, not shouting in my head anger, just a switch flipping. Selene noticed the quiet on the drive home. She stared out the window as the streetlights rolled past. You knew I was joking, she said finally. Sure, I said. Best jokes are the ones that need explaining after the fact. It wasn't about you. Of course not, I said. You were talking about the other husband at your mother's birthday dinner. She shifted in her seat. You're being dramatic. Probably, I said, but I guess I need the practice. We went to bed without another word. The silence had structure, like furniture, solid, heavy, there whether we wanted it or not. The next morning, I put on a shirt that felt stiff, tied the same tie I always tie, and went to work like nothing had happened. I read emails, nodded in meetings, listened to a grown man say, synergy, like it was a spell that could solve all our problems. But under all that, something was running in the background. Not loud, just steady. At lunch, I walked to the bank instead of eating at my desk. Transfer from joint savings to personal checking, I told the teller. Do you need your spouse to? No, full access. Both names, I said, she typed. Numbers moved from one box to another. That was all. That was a lot. Our vacation on a brochure became fuel for an engine that wasn't built yet. 3 exits down sat the Ford dealership I'd looked at online, the way people look at houses they won't buy. I told myself I'd browse. I parked in a clean space and walked in under bright lights that made every color confess. Then I saw it. A black Mustang GT fastback. The paint was so shiny, it looked like it had swallowed the sky. Some cars ask for permission. This one didn't. The salesman appeared like he'd been waiting for me all day. Beautiful, isn't she? She is, I said. He opened the door. The leather smell hit me, clean and expensive. Want to take her for a spin? I didn't call Selene to ask her opinion. I didn't think about cruise brochures. I just nodded. We hit the road. The engine made a low, confident sound. Not loud, just sure of itself. The salesman rattled off numbers. Horsepower, torque, 0 to 60. I heard them, but what I really heard was something in my chest saying, yes. Back at the desk, I signed papers. He said, great choice, and you'll love it, and congratulations. And I thought, I'm not buying a car. I'm drawing a line. He handed me keys like an invitation. I took them like a decision. I drove home slower than I had to, because sometimes it's better to savor a moment. Neighbors turned their heads. One guy watering his lawn gave me a thumbs up like we were in some secret club. A kid on a scooter stopped and stared like I was a parade float that took a wrong turn into his life. Celine was waiting at the door. Her face went through 5 emotions in 3 seconds before it landed on furious. What is that? She demanded. A car, I said. Where's our car? At the dealership. Career change. Dorian, we have a cruise. We had a cruise, I said. Past tense. You canceled it? Yes. You did that without asking me? You didn't ask me last night. You just made a speech. That was a joke. This is my joke, I said. She folded her arms so tightly her shoulders rose. You can't just decide things like this. I did. Apparently I can. You're being immature. Maybe. Or maybe I just matched the energy. She stared at the Mustang like it had personally offended her. This is reckless, she said. It's honest. You said husbands are replaceable. I replaced something with what? With something I actually want. We stood there, letting the sentence hang between us. I walked to the fridge, grabbed a plain beer, and leaned on the counter. So that's it? Celine said. You buy a Mustang, drink a beer, and pretend everything's fine? No, I said. It's not fine. But now it's clear. The next morning felt different. Same house, same coffee maker, same kitchen counter with the faint ring from Celine's wine glass. But the air had changed. Or maybe I had. I didn't put on my usual work uniform. No stiff shirt, no tie that made me look like a middle manager auditioning for respect. Instead, I wore jeans and a clean black t-shirt, the kind that actually fit. Sunglasses I hadn't worn since last summer. Celine was at the kitchen table scrolling on her phone. She didn't look up. Where are you going? She asked flatly. To work, I said. And maybe somewhere that isn't work after. You're doing this to punish me. I'm doing this to stop punishing me. Same thing. Not even close, I said. I grabbed the keys. The Mustang was waiting in the driveway, morning light bouncing off its hood. The engine came to life with a low growl that felt like it was aimed at my spine. At the office, I parked in the far row on purpose, where everyone coming in could see it, and they did. Holy crap, whose car is that? Someone asked near the entrance. It's mine, I said, walking past. Midlife crisis? Another guy joked. No, I said. Midlife upgrade. People nodded the way people nod when they see someone do something they secretly wish they could. Inside, work was the same. Emails, meetings, coffee that tasted like burnt dirt. But I was different. I caught my reflection in the window and saw a man who suddenly looked like he had options. At lunch, I didn't eat in the break room. I drove. Long way around the city. No destination. Just me, the road, and an engine that sounded like a dare. I ended up stopping at a small clothing store I'd passed 100 times and never gone into. The clerk measured me and said, "You've been wearing the wrong size." "Yeah," I said. "Seems to be a theme lately." I left with 2 shirts that actually fit my shoulders, a pair of jeans, and a leather jacket I had no business buying but did anyway. Back at the office, Pamela, my boss, caught me at the coffee machine. "Dorian," she said, nodding toward the window. "That your car out there?" "It is. Very shiny. Very fast, too," she smiled. "Midlife crisis?" "Midlife clarity," I said. She tilted her head. "Don't quit on me. You're good at what you do. I'm good at other things too, I said. Must be nice, she said, and walked away. After work, I didn't drive straight home. Instead, I drove to the fancy cafe where Celine and Lauren go every Friday to catch up, which usually means talk about other people's lives. Big windows, minimalist decor, overpriced muffins. I parked the Mustang right in front, in the spot you usually save for city councilmen or wedding photographers. I didn't go inside. I just sat there, scrolling my phone, engine still warm. It didn't take long. Lauren spotted me first and pointed like she'd just seen a UFO. Celine turned, froze for a second, then narrowed her eyes. My phone buzzed. Celine, what are you doing here? Me, trying new places. Celine, you don't even like this cafe. Me, I like the view. I stayed exactly 3 more minutes, then started the car, letting the exhaust growl just enough to turn heads, and drove away. When I got home, the sunset made the car look like trouble parked in the driveway. I left it there on purpose, where the neighbors could see it. Celine was waiting in the living room, arms crossed. Did you seriously just drive to my cafe to show off? She asked. I drove to a cafe, I said. What you saw is between you and your interpretation. You're being cruel. No, I said. I'm being visible. You want attention? Yes, I said. From my wife. She blinked at that, like she wasn't ready for the honesty. This isn't how marriage works. Good, I said, because how it was working wasn't working. She pressed her hands to her temples. We should talk to someone. A therapist, maybe. But first, we talk to each other. And we stop talking to rooms full of people who didn't marry us. It was a joke, she said again, softer this time, like lowering the volume might change the meaning. Then this is a joke too, I said. Let's hope we both learn something. The next evening, Claudia showed up. She never just drops by. When Claudia comes over, it's an event. She sat at the kitchen table like a judge, perfectly calm, perfectly polite, which is worse than yelling. People are talking, she said, folding her hands. They talked at your birthday too, I said. They were great at it. She gave me a look that could smooth wrinkles off a shirt. Celine shouldn't have said that, Claudia admitted. Celine shifted in her chair. It was a joke. It landed wrong, Claudia said, which is mother code for it was wrong. I bought a car, I said. That landed exactly where I wanted. Claudia tilted her head. Is this about power? No, I said. Respect. She turned to her daughter. Do you respect your husband? Yes, Celine said quickly, staring at the table. Do you show it? Claudia asked. Celine's mouth opened, then closed. Not yesterday. Good, I said. We're getting somewhere. Claudia suggested therapy, date nights, communication exercises. Those are fine, I said. But I have 3 rules. 1. No public statements. Not at parties, not at dinners, not anywhere with an audience. Celine nodded once. 2. If we have a problem, we talk to each other first. Another nod. And 3. I make decisions about my time and money without asking for permission. I'll listen, I'll consider, but I won't ask, Celine glared. So, I don't matter? You matter enough for me to stay, I said, but not enough to run me. Claudia's eyebrows went up slightly, but she stayed quiet. And if I don't agree? Celine asked. Then you were right. Some husbands are replaceable. The kitchen went very still. I don't want a divorce, she said finally, quick, like she was afraid the words might escape. I don't want the old marriage, I said. Pick. Nobody moved. I stood, took the keys, and let the engine say what I didn't need to repeat. The street opened. The night welcomed. I drove until the air felt like it had washed itself. Time passed in useful pieces. I went to the gym 3 mornings a week. The trainer, Gabe, spoke in complete sentences but never long ones. Hips back, chest up. You've got more. He didn't clap for me when I finished a set. He nodded once. That was better. At home, I fixed the hinge that squeaked every time you looked at it. I replaced the kitchen bulb that made everything the color of a bad decision. I cooked steak with salt, pepper, heat, patience. Celine watched me plate it like it might jump. Lauren came by with the confidence of someone who believes she's the designated league therapist. She held a reusable coffee cup and a look that rehearsed concern. "Dorian, everyone thinks you're having a crisis," she said. "I am," I said. "It's called a life." "You bought a loud car?" "I bought a clear sentence," I said. "You're changing everything." "I'm changing me. Everything else is doing what it needs to do." She blinked. "You were nicer when you were boring." "I was quieter when I was bored," I said. The real test came at dinner with Celine's friends, Camille and Jenna, who do opinions like yoga, regularly, confidently, in cute outfits. The restaurant had plants that looked curated and waiters who explained salt like it won awards. We sat. Water arrived like peace talks. Camille leaned in. "We heard you had an event at Claudia's." "We had a reallocation," I said. "Moved the budget from a boat to a steering wheel." "Men buy cars when they want to feel young," Camille said. "Women get bangs." "Please don't get bangs," I told Celine. "We've all suffered enough." Camille tried to hold her serious face and lost. Jenna smiled into her napkin. Celine tilted her head. "He's in his mysterious driver era," she said lightly. "Thinks he's too cool for family cruises." "I just stopped auditioning for roles I didn't accept," I said. "I'll play the husband. I won't do crowd work." Camille raised her glass. "That's oddly reasonable." We ate. We listened to the waiter explain the origin story of the fish. Celine's foot found mine under the table, not to warn, not to claim, just to check. I kept it there. After dinner, on the sidewalk, people stopped to look at the car. A woman said, "That black is very sure of itself." I said, "It's honest." And she said, "I like honest." And then she was gone and the night was an open hand. Celine sat on the edge of the bed later and said, "I hate this version of you." "You mean the one who doesn't quietly eat insults?" I asked. "I mean the one who doesn't need me." "I do need you," I said, "just not as a referee." She stared at her hands. "I'm scared." "Good," I said, and she looked up like I'd slapped her. "Fear means you care about the outcome. I'm scared too. I'm doing it anyway." We drove to the Overlook the next evening with a blanket that's lived in our closet for 5 years, waiting for a version of us that uses blankets. The city stretched out like a promise that might keep itself if you help. We split a sandwich, the cheap kind, and it tasted like choices. "I want to fix this," she said. "Then let's fix it," I said. "What if I can't?" "Then you were right," I said. She flinched. "But I think you can." She leaned into my shoulder. It wasn't a negotiation. It was a reminder. She called a therapist. I kept lifting things I didn't think I could lift. The house got quieter, the kind of quiet that has oxygen in it. Claudia called me one afternoon and said, I shouldn't have let the room laugh, and I said, "Thank you," and she let the conversation land without a flourish. One afternoon, I washed the car in the driveway because some cliches are just good ideas. Soap, water, morning light. Celine came outside with coffee and handed it to me like a flag in a ceasefire. "You're taking this very seriously," she said. "Which part?" I asked. "All of it." "Your toasts have range," I said. And she winced because truth is sharp even when you don't throw it. "Mom told me to apologize," she said. "So I will." "I'm sorry." "Are you apologizing for the joke?" I said. "Or for enjoying the room when it laughed?" She closed her eyes. "Both." "Thank you," I said. "I accept one. The second is your work." We started walking in the evenings, not far, not fast, just walking. We learned the neighborhood smells at 7 p.m., grills, laundry, that one house that always smells like cinnamon rolls and disappointment. Neighbors waved. The guy with the perfect lawn asked me to help move a grill that looked like a small submarine. We did it without commentary, which is a kind of friendship men are allowed to have. At the gym, Gabe added more weight without even asking me first. "You can handle this," he said simply. It was hard, but I pushed through it. My legs burned, but I kept coming back. One day, a man with a big scar on his shoulder stopped near me and said, "Your form looks better now." Then he walked away. It was just 2 words, but it felt like real progress. One night, late, the street was quiet and Selene stood in the doorway when I pulled in. I turned off the engine and listened to the metal tick as it cooled. Small, honest sounds. I like those. I walked up the path. "I'll never make that kind of joke again," she said. "Good," I said, "because I won't sit through it." We let that sit between us. It didn't feel like a threat. It felt like a rule. The next week we tried a small dinner at home without phones. I cooked. She cleaned. I didn't keep score. She didn't do commentary. After, we sat on the couch and looked at a lamp we both hated and had hated for 6 years. "Let's replace it," she said. We did. The room forgave us for waiting. People kept trying to assign this a label. Crisis, phase, statement. I let them. It didn't change what I was doing. Not auditioning, not performing, not eating what wasn't food. I drove. I lifted. I fixed the loose drawer that made a noise like a complaint. I answered Celine honestly, even when sarcasm was more fun. The days stopped feeling like a hallway between someone else's rooms. Then the final conversation arrived the way final conversations do, after a normal dinner on a Tuesday. Celine sat at the table with a notebook. That used to give me the same feeling as a dentist wearing gloves. Tonight, I waited. "I made a list," she said, and I braced for the part where lists mean rules. It's not rules. It's things I can actually do. "Okay," I said. "I will not talk about you to people," she said, eyes on the page. "I will not use you as a punchline. I will ask what you want before I decide what we are doing. I will stop managing you like a project. I don't like you when you're a project. I don't like me when I'm a project either," I said. She kept reading. "I will be curious in private and respectful in public. I will tell my sister to limit her help to recipes. I will stop confusing drama for intimacy, and I will ask you to tell me the truth even when it's inconvenient." I nodded. "That's a good list." She finally looked up. "What do you need from me right now?" "Consistency," I said, "not intensity." She wrote that down. "And what do you offer me?" "Same," I said, "plus steak." She smiled, the kind that starts in the eyes because it has somewhere to go. "I miss us when we were easy." "Me too," I said, "but easy didn't keep us." Maybe honest will she closed the notebook. The room didn't cheer or play soft music. It just held. Later that night, in bed, she turned off her lamp and said into the dark, "You looked steady today." "I felt steady," I said. "Keep it," she said, and her hand found my arm and stayed there like it didn't need permission. Toward the end of the week, Camille texted Selene a quote about loving the person your partner is becoming. Selene showed it to me and rolled her eyes at herself. "I hate that this helps," she said. "Good help is annoying sometimes," I said. We scheduled one session with a couples therapist. We didn't perform. We told the truth in short sentences. The therapist nodded in a way that said, "I can't fix you, but I can keep you from slipping on your own floor." After, in the parking lot, Celine leaned against the car and said, "I don't want to lose you." I said, "Then don't," and she blinked like I'd used a magic trick when it was just a door. I still drove at night sometimes because the road at night is honest. When I pulled into our driveway, the house didn't look like a stage anymore. It looked like a place people live when they try. I turned off the engine and listened to the tick, tick, tick of metal cooling. Honest little sounds that mean something happened and is still happening. Selene stood at the window, not watching the street, watching me. Not measuring, not grading, just watching. I walked in and she said, "Hi," like a real word, not a placeholder. I said, "Hi," back, put the keys on the hook, and let the house take me. I turned off the porch light. The neighborhood quieted down until the only sound left was the car cooling and our breathing settling into the same patient rhythm. Somewhere a dog told another dog a story. Somewhere a streetlight flickered and decided to keep going. I closed my eyes and let the day be done. Tomorrow would test us again. Good. Tests are how you learn what stays. And for the first time in years, I liked our odds. A month later, we were back at Claudia's house. Same long table, same candles, same plates that clicked when you set them down. This time there were fewer jokes, less noise, not awkward, just quieter. Claudia raised her glass halfway through dinner and said simply, "To family." Everyone repeated it. No one added anything clever. Celine looked at me across the table. There was no smirk this time, no sideways glance waiting for applause. Just a look that stayed. A look that said she remembered that night, the laugh, the room, the glass I'd raised, and the way everything changed afterward. When dinner was over, I didn't rush to leave, but I didn't linger either. On the way out, Claudia touched my arm. "You were good tonight," I said. "Thanks," she said, trying to keep it simple. Outside, the Mustang sat under the porch light, black and patient. I slid into the driver's seat, turned the key, and let the engine's low growl settle into the night. Celine got in without a word. We drove home with the windows cracked. The city moved past slowly, streetlights pulling long lines across the hood. We didn't speak, not because there was nothing to say, but because nothing needed translation anymore. At a red light, Celine reached across the console and set her hand on mine. Not a plea, not a test, just contact. When we got home, I left the car in the driveway, let the engine tick and cool. We stood there for a moment, looking at the house that no longer felt like a stage for someone else's performance. "You think we'll be okay?" she asked quietly. "We'll see," I said. "But I like our odds." She nodded, and for the first time since Claudia's birthday, her shoulders dropped. Later, when the house was dark, I walked to the window and looked out at the Mustang. It wasn't about the car anymore. It hadn't been for weeks. It was about the fact that I'd finally stopped living like a placeholder in my own life. The street was quiet. The air felt honest. Tomorrow would test us again, and that was fine. Because for the first time in a long time, I wasn't just staying. I was choosing. If you felt this story hit hard, drop a like, subscribe for more, and share your thoughts in the comments. Your support keeps Steelheart beating.